Last week, the Institute for Reforming Government here in Wisconsin released its poll. 7 in 10 Wisconsin voters say the state, 7 in 10, you guys don't need to say in the state. 7 in 10 Wisconsin voters say the state is in a cost of living crisis. 3/4 say their income has fallen behind inflation, and 42% say inflation of the cost of living is the single most important issue heading into the November race. When asked what would help their personal finances, 38% said lower food costs, 18% said lower taxes, 18% said lower housing costs. Now, again, I screwed up the delivery. My bad. Cost of living crisis. What's driving that? Well, almost 40% say the price of food. 18% say the cost of taxes. 18% say the cost of a house. Now, 18% in and of itself doesn't sound like a big number, but the cost of taxes is the second biggest driver of the cost of living crisis here in Wisconsin. It is as big a problem as the cost of a house. In fact, the numbers actually get worse when you get to the rest of the numbers, and IRG drilled into the numbers. Majorities of Republicans, Independents, and Democrats want every major tax category reduced, according to the poll. 51% want lower state income taxes. 53% want lower property taxes. 46% want school property taxes lowered, and 41% of people want sales tax lowered. When you get more than half the people in a state like Wisconsin to agree on one thing, that's a headline grabber. When you get more than half the people in the state agreeing that we are taxed too much, that is a huge headline. More than half the people want the state's income tax cut. More than half the people want their local property taxes cut. And almost half the people want their local school portion of that tax cut as well. That's not only a big deal, a big headline, that's a big change. Yes, most of the school referendum questions, the local tax hikes for schools that were on this month's ballot passed. They usually do. But it was a noticeably smaller number, and the vote margins were noticeably smaller as well. What the poll shows, what the vote from early April shows, is that voters are waking up to the realization that they are spending an awful lot on things that the government does, and they're not getting very much back in return. Specifically with schools, we continue to spend more and more and more every year, and we see that kids are reading, writing, and doing math worse. And more to the point, voters are starting to wake up to the realization that there may never be enough money for the government. There may never be enough money for schools. How many Democrats who are running for governor talk about fully funding schools, but yet not a single one of them can tell you how much that is? They can't give you a dollar number. We're spending, what, at the bare minimum, $15,000 per kid? That's more than it would cost for tuition at the University of Wisconsin. Yet we can't get more than a third of our kids to read, write, or do math. Act 10 and the monstrous property taxes that are going to follow the end of Act 10 are only going to make it worse. Taxpayers in Wisconsin are going to have to give back the $35+ billion in savings that Act 10 gave us going all the way back to 2011. And it's not just teachers, it's cops, it's firefighters, it's everybody who draws a government paycheck. Now, I know, because this is conservative talk radio. And we've got 5 loyal liberal listeners. Well, Ben, I'm more than happy to pay my fair share. In fact, we need to have the rich people. If only we taxed the rich, Ben. Bill Maher made that point Friday. He made the point that taxing the rich sounds like a good idea, but in reality, the rich are already being taxed. And in fact, a lot of people who you wouldn't think are rich are being taxed as well. And he made the point that at the end of the day, what are we getting for all of these taxes that we pay?
I paid to the government, if you add in state tax, local sales, property, fees, Obamacare, probably almost 60% of what I earn. That's a lot. And I still wouldn't mind if Bernie Sanders would stop saying the rich don't pay taxes. And while I'm sure the super rich with their army of accountants and corporate loopholes get away with murder, us regular rich people pay a ton of taxes. And who stands up and gives us a pat on the back? Nobody, that's who. The top 10% pay 72% of all federal income taxes, and the bottom half, 3%. The Democratic Socialists talk about socialism like we don't already have a lot. Social Security, unemployment, Medicare, nutritional assistance, Medicaid, Obamacare, disability, housing subsidies. Again, not against it. Just the same question. How can you be soaking the rich and failing the poor so badly?
It would be one thing if we paid what we pay in taxes and we had second to none public services. It would be one thing if every single kid in the state of Wisconsin got a first-class education for the amount of money that we spend. But that's simply not the truth. Milwaukee Public Schools, by the time you add up the cost to educate each kid, it's about $25,000. $25,000 per kid per year. That's full freight at almost every university in the state, plus room and board, dining plan, and that really neat rock wall that you can climb, or the lazy river, or you can go down to the Mifflin Street block party. And yet 95% of black fourth graders in the city of Milwaukee can't solve a simple word problem. Marr used it for an applause line. He used it as a punchline. He used it as a joke. But this is where we're getting. And I'm hopeful. Because if these IRG numbers are true, and I have no reason to believe that they wouldn't be, you're starting to get to that critical mass of people who say, look, my taxes are becoming part of my cost of living problem. I'm more than willing to pay so we have roads. I want cops and snowplows and high school football on Friday night, but my God, I can't continue to pay more and 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 get less and less and less and less and less in returns.